Bhutanese refugees, Bhutan's crime against humanity. The history of Bhutanese refugee dates back to the 1980s when Bhutan, a small Himalayan kingdom, launched a campaign to promote the country's unique culture and identity, which led to the persecution and discrimination of ethnic Nepalese, who comprised a significant minority in Bhutan. The government viewed the presence of Nepali-speaking people as a threat to Bhutanese identity and national security, and in 1988, it enacted the Citizenship Act. The act made it difficult for ethnic Nepalese to acquire Bhutanese citizenship. Furthermore, Bhutan's One Nation, One People policy aimed to impose a single Bhutanese culture and language on the entire population, effectively suppressing the cultural and linguistic rights of the Nepali-speaking community. As a result, many Nepali-speaking Bhutanese were rendered stateless, and in the early 1990s, the government launched a campaign to evict them from the country. This campaign included harassment, detention, and torture of ethnic Nepalese, as well as the confiscation of their land and property. As a result, tens of thousands of ethnic Nepalese fled Bhutan and sought refuge in neighboring Nepal. The root cause of Bhutanese refugees can be traced back to the government's policy of promoting a single Bhutanese culture and identity, which marginalized and discriminated against the ethnic Nepali minority. This policy aimed to impose a singular national identity on the population and excluded the cultural and linguistic diversity of the Nepali-speaking community. The government's actions included revoking the citizenship of many ethnic Nepalese, confiscating their land, and suppressing their language, culture, and religion. This led to discrimination, persecution, and violence against ethnic Nepalese, who were denied their basic human rights, including the right to citizenship and the right to participate in political and social life. Adding more, the government's campaign to evict ethnic Nepalese from the country in the early 1990s further exacerbated the situation, forcing tens of thousands of people to flee to neighboring Nepal and seek refuge in refugee camps. The exclusion and discrimination violated the human rights of ethnic Nepalese and contributed to their displacement and forced migration. There have been numerous reports of torture, harassment, and other forms of human rights violations against ethnic Nepalese in Bhutan. Furthermore, Bhutan, while in the process of making a homogeneous country, persecuted the Nepali-speaking minority, who were often targeted by security forces and government officials. Some of the reported forms of torture and mistreatment included beatings, electric shocks, and forced confessions. Many ethnic Nepalese were also subjected to arbitrary detention, and some were held incommunicado, without access to legal representation or family visits. The government's policies also led to the forced eviction of ethnic Nepalese from their homes and land, which often involved the use of violence and intimidation. This forced many people to flee their homes and seek refuge in neighboring countries. There have been accusations of ethnic cleansing against the Bhutanese government for its policies towards the ethnic Nepali minority in the country. Ethnic cleansing is defined as the forced displacement, persecution, or killing of members of a particular ethnic or religious group with the intention of creating a homogeneous society. The Bhutanese government's policies towards the ethnic Nepali minority have been described as discriminatory and exclusionary, aimed at promoting a single Bhutanese culture and identity. This has led to the denial of citizenship to many ethnic Nepalese, restrictions on their language, culture, and religion, and forced eviction from their homes and land. The reasons for the expulsion of ethnic Nepalese from Bhutan, known as Lhotchampas, are complex and contested. The Bhutanese government has stated that the expulsions were necessary to maintain the cultural and political identity of Bhutan, and that the Lhotchampas were not genuine Bhutanese citizens but rather illegal immigrants who had entered the country illegally and were threatening Bhutan's sovereignty and stability. Adding on, the policy of Bhutanization aims to assimilate all ethnic and linguistic groups into a single Bhutanese identity. This policy has been criticized for being discriminatory against ethnic Nepalese, who make up a significant minority in the country. The government has imposed restrictions on the use of the Nepali language, including in education, public administration, and media. Nepali language newspapers and radio stations have been shut down, and Nepali-speaking students have been forced to learn in Dzongkha, the national language of Bhutan, even if they do not speak it at home. The government has also restricted the practice of Nepali culture and religion, including the celebration of Nepali festivals and the construction of Nepali temples. Ethnic Nepalis have been prohibited from wearing their traditional dress, and those who do so have been subjected to harassment and discrimination. As a result, by the late 1990s, there were over 100,000 Bhutanese refugees living in refugee camps in Nepal, where they faced many challenges, including poor living conditions, limited access to education and health care, and a lack of economic opportunities. The refugees were mainly concentrated in 7 refugee camps in eastern Nepal, namely Beldangi, Sanaskare, Goldhap, Tumai, Kujanabari, Beldangi II, and Beldangi III. The refugees relied heavily on aid from international organizations such as the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, UNHCR, and various NGOs for their survival. However, the aid was often inadequate, and refugees lived in poverty and faced significant challenges in accessing basic services and opportunities. Further, the situation escalated to the level of humanitarian crisis. The forced migration of Bhutanese has been a significant humanitarian crisis, and the international community has called on the Bhutanese government to address the issue of citizenship and provide redress to those who have been displaced or otherwise affected by its policies. While there have been some efforts to address the issue, many Bhutanese refugees continue to live in limbo, waiting for a solution to their displacement. In 2007, the governments of Bhutan, Nepal, and the UNHCR agreed to a process of third-country resettlement for the Bhutanese refugees. Under this process, refugees were given the option to resettle in third countries such as the United States, Canada, Australia, and various European countries. The resettlement process was voluntary, and refugees were given the opportunity to choose whether they wanted to resettle or remain in the camps. Since the start of the resettlement process, over 100,000 Bhutanese refugees have been resettled in various countries, with the majority being resettled in the United States. However, as of 2021, there are still several thousand refugees living in the camps in Nepal, with many of them having chosen to stay behind due to a variety of reasons, including attachment to their homeland and fear of discrimination in resettlement countries. While resettlement has provided many Bhutanese Nepalese with opportunities for a new life and better prospects, it has also brought challenges. Many refugees have experienced difficulties adjusting to their new environments, including language barriers, cultural differences, and limited access to social and economic resources. There have also been concerns about maintaining cultural and community connections and preserving the heritage and identity of Bhutanese Nepalese in the diaspora. It is difficult to generalize about the happiness of Bhutanese Nepalese today, as their experiences and perspectives are diverse and complex. While some Bhutanese Nepalese who have returned to Bhutan or resettled in other countries may have found greater stability, security, and opportunities, others may continue to face challenges and difficulties in their lives. Some Bhutanese refugees who have resettled in other countries continue to advocate for their rights and for a just and lasting resolution to the refugee crisis. Efforts are ongoing to seek justice and accountability for the harms suffered by the Bhutanese Nepalese population during the period of ethnic cleansing in Bhutan in the early 1990s. However, the overall situation is complex, and there is still much work to be done to fully resolve the Bhutanese refugee crisis. In short, in the process of Bhutanization, Bhutan has committed crime against humanity. While cleansing Nepalese ethnic community from Bhutan, the country's security forces have involved several crimes including sexual violence, rape, torture, inhuman killings, ruthless murders, and many others. It is estimated that tens of thousands of Bhutanese Nepalese were expelled or fled Bhutan during this period, and many were forced to live in refugee camps in neighboring Nepal. In recent years, many Bhutanese refugees have been resettled to other countries, including the United States, Canada, Australia, and several European countries. However, some refugees still remain in the camps in Nepal, and their situation remains precarious. Overall, while some Bhutanese Nepalese may be happy and satisfied with their current circumstances, others may continue to face significant challenges and difficulties, and the situation remains a matter of concern for many. Thank you for watching.